Hey guys, tonight we dive into the unexpected and mysterious life of a male concubine in a royal court. You probably think it's all golden robes, exotic foods, and the thrill of the lavish life, but let me tell you, if you were a male concubine, you probably wouldn't survive this. The royal court isn't what you expect. You'd learn the hard way that survival here isn't about beauty or charm, but about playing a dangerous game where power and danger walk hand in hand. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, feel free to post where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Let's see where this journey takes us across the globe tonight. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The air is thick with the smell of incense, mingling with the crispness of marble floors. The royal palace is a labyrinth of corridors, each more opulent than the last, filled with glistening tapestries and the distant echoes of footsteps. As you walk, you can't help but feel the weight of every pair of eyes on you. Whispers swirl in the air, secretive murmurs that you won't catch but you know exist. You're an outsider in a world full of dangerous beauty and unseen power dynamics. Every step you take feels like you're walking on the edge of a blade. You're here now, inside the royal court, a male concubine. This isn't the life you imagined, but this is the life you'll have to survive. You're not here by choice, at least not entirely. The king's whims brought you into this world, and now you're expected to serve in ways you never anticipated. But your purpose here isn't just to satisfy the king's desires. You're a symbol, a pawn in a game of power and politics that extends far beyond the bedroom. Historians still argue whether concubines held true power in these courts or were merely instruments of royal prestige. The truth, as you will soon learn, is more complicated. Your existence here isn't about luxury, it's about survival. The court is like a stage, a vast dark theatre where the roles of the players constantly shift, and those who can't adapt don't last long. As the hours pass, your senses become heightened. You notice the smooth brush of silk against your skin as you're dressed for an evening with the king. Your body feels tense, alert, as if each movement could trigger a chain reaction of events. But it's not just your body that's under scrutiny, it's your mind. Every conversation, every glance, every movement you make will be watched, analyzed and dissected by those who are here to keep their place in the royal hierarchy. One fact that stands clear is that in royal courts, a concubine isn't just a companion or lover. You're a status symbol, an object to be displayed. You're here to entertain, but also to remind others of the king's immense power. When people see you in his presence, they're reminded of his wealth, his taste, his superiority. But that very status comes with its own set of challenges. You quickly realize that luxury and power aren't as glamorous as they seem. They come with rules. And more importantly, with enemies. You're not yet sure who your true enemies are. At first it's easy to assume the queen might be your greatest threat, her jealousy a constant undercurrent in the air. But as you settle into your role, you come to understand the real danger lies not in those who are openly hostile, but in the ones who wear a mask of kindness. You are just beginning to understand the intricate power structures around you. As you lay down to rest in your chambers, the weight of it all presses in on you. You might think that tonight will be another peaceful night, but even in the quiet, the threats in this royal court lurk just beneath the surface. You stand there, alone in the opulent royal harem, taking in your surroundings. The night is unsettlingly quiet, but the tension in the air is palpable. It's your first night as a male concubine in this strange and foreign world. You never imagined the depth of what it would entail. It's not just about satisfying the king's desires. You're a commodity, and that truth sinks in quickly. Every movement you make, every word you speak, could have consequences. Your initial excitement about the glamour fades away, replaced by the realization that the court is filled with complexities you couldn't have imagined. The king's palace isn't a sanctuary of luxury. It's a place of constant competition, rivalry, and manipulation. Here, status isn't determined by birthright alone. It's earned, lost, and regained with every encounter, every conversation. You may have entered the palace with dreams of being the king's favorite, but you quickly realize that the court isn't interested in your aspirations. It only cares about who holds the true power, who can manipulate the system to their advantage. The first night serves as an initiation, a trial by fire. You're not just part of the king's harem, you're part of a much larger web, one that extends far beyond the velvet walls. You've heard the whispers, the legends of concubines who rose to unimaginable heights, who became trusted advisors and confidants to the king. But you've also heard the darker stories, those of concubines who vanished, their names erased from history, their lives sacrificed in the name of royal intrigue. Historians still argue whether these tales of power and downfall are exaggerated, but you know that, in this world, nothing is as it seems. The room is lavish, filled with silken cushions and elaborate tapestries, but it feels oppressive, heavy with the knowledge that you are now part of something much larger than yourself. You've heard the rumors about the king's whims, how one day you might be his most prized possession, and the next just another discarded toy. The tension in the air is thick, and your body reacts instinctively to the shift in mood around you. Your every sense is alert, as if you can feel the invisible threads pulling you in different directions. Your first night with the king is marked by an eerie silence. He's distant, unyielding, and yet there's something magnetic about his presence. You've heard stories of his notorious temper, his unpredictable behavior, but tonight he's calm, almost too calm. The atmosphere feels off, and you realize that you're not just here to entertain. You're being evaluated, watched, and tested. The true test of your survival will come not from physical endurance, but from your ability to navigate the web of politics, intrigue, and power. Every glance you receive is laced with hidden meanings. The other concubines are no strangers to this world. They understand the stakes. They've seen others come and go. Some have mastered the art of staying in the king's favor, while others have learned to walk away with whatever dignity they can salvage. But in this moment, you feel a deep sinking realization. No one is truly safe. Power in this court isn't just given. It's constantly fought for, manipulated, and secured with every interaction. The king's demands are unpredictable, shifting like the tides. You might be the object of his desire one moment, the next just another face in the crowd. But tonight is different. Tonight he's distant, observing you as if you're a specimen in a glass case. You try to read his expression, but his face is an unreadable mask. one you know you must learn to decipher quickly if you're to survive. Your role here is becoming clearer, but it's also more terrifying. You're not just a source of pleasure as you might have imagined. You are a player in a grander game. A game where you're being groomed for something far more dangerous than you could have predicted. Historians have long debated the true role of concubines in royal courts. Some argue that they were nothing more than symbols of the king's power, while others claim they wielded subtle influence over royal decisions. What's clear, however, is that concubines weren't passive figures. They were active participants in a delicate, volatile system. But you aren't sure where you stand yet. For now, you're just trying to stay afloat in a sea of unseen dangers. As the night stretches on, you feel the weight of your situation more heavily. The golden robes and fine foods may seem like the rewards of power, but the more you settle in, the more you realize that the true cost of this life is far more than just wealth or luxury. It's your very sense of self. You will be molded by this world, shaped by forces beyond your control. You try to relax, but the sound of distant whispers reaches your ears. The servants, the guards, even the other concubines, they're all watching, calculating, waiting for your next move. You must remain alert, aware and calculating yourself. The game has already begun, and you're only just learning the rules. Your body still feels the tension from the night's events, the lavish silks on your skin, the soft murmurs of the court, the deep, rich scent of perfume in the air. All of it should feel comforting. But in reality, it's a suffocating cocoon, trapping you in a world where every gesture matters and every word counts. In the distance, you hear the sound of footsteps, someone approaching. The moment passes, but the meaning isn't lost on you. You're being watched, even in your most private moments. Every decision you make, every alliance you form will determine how long you last in this court. You've heard the stories of concubines who lived out their days in luxury, but you've also heard the stories of those who vanished without a trace. You're now part of that dangerous world, and your journey has only just begun. The royal court, with all its gleaming walls and lavish furnishings, is more than just a spectacle. It's a high-stakes game. Every day in this world feels like you're a piece on a chessboard, and you can't help but wonder who's controlling the moves. Power here doesn't belong solely to the king, no matter how much you want to believe it. In this world, power is a currency traded in whispers and looks, in favors and debts, and you, being a male concubine, are caught in the middle of it. A player who doesn't yet understand the rules. You've barely scratched the surface, and already you can feel the weight of the court's politics pressing on you. The true power in the palace lies not just with the king, but in the hands of the people around him. The courtiers, the military leaders, the advisors, and, yes, the other concubines. Each of them plays their own game, using their influence to secure their place, to hold on to the king's favor. Your job, for now, is to figure out where you stand in this elaborate web, and to do that, you must watch closely and learn the unspoken rules. Historians still argue whether the real power in royal courts ever belonged to the ruler, or if it was always a shared, decentralized force. In the case of male concubines, many believe they had little more power than the servants who waited on them, while others claim they were well positioned to influence the king's decisions. You're starting to see both sides of this argument play out in front of you. You may not hold any formal titles or control, but in subtle ways, you are a part of the system. Your presence, your status as a concubine, holds weight, though it's not always visible. The first thing you realize is that the court is a space where loyalty is a rare commodity. You are constantly reminded of how fluid alliances are here. One moment, someone is your closest confidant. The next, they're a potential threat. A glance exchanged in passing, a slight movement of the head, these could signal a change in the current power dynamic. Every gesture, every word, could shift the balance of power in an instant. You learn quickly that trust is a luxury you can't afford. In this world, loyalty is fleeting, and anyone who tells you otherwise is either lying or a fool. As king's advisors, too, play their part in this system. They're the real power brokers, behind the scenes, pulling strings that the king himself might not even notice. They whisper in his ear, guiding his decisions, sometimes even manipulating him to further their own agendas. You've seen it already. The subtle nods, the brief words exchanged behind closed doors. It's a dance, and you're just beginning to learn the rhythm. The Queen, too, isn't as much a figurehead as you might have imagined. Her position is precarious, and she has her own set of alliances to manage, her own games to play. As much as she may appear to be the king's equal, she is not. She too is trapped in this web of power dynamics. It's a harsh reality, one you're coming to understand all too well. The Queen's jealousy is real, but it is also calculated. She doesn't just dislike you for being with the king. She fears what you might represent. She knows how easily a male concubine could rise in the ranks, how quickly their status could shift from lover to confidant, from plaything to powerful ally. You begin to understand that power in the court is constantly shifting. One day you might be in favor, the next you're discarded. It's a game, and it's dangerous. As you observe the other concubines, you start to see the different ways they navigate the royal court. Some are quiet, their influence hidden beneath a veil of submission. Others are bolder, using their beauty, their charm, and their wit to gain the king's attention. But all of them have one thing in common. They understand the rules of survival in this dangerous world. You don't yet know the rules as well as they do, but you're learning. You notice the small things, the way some of the concubines never look the king directly in the eye, the way others always stay just a little closer to him, never letting him forget their presence. There are whispers of their secret dealings, their alliances with powerful men and women in the court. You hear rumors of how the king's closest advisor was once a lowly concubine who played the game so well they eventually became his most trusted confidant. It's a story that both terrifies and excites you. Could you rise to such heights? Or would you become just another forgotten face in the harem? Another casualty of the court's ruthless politics? One thing is clear. To survive, you must adapt. You can no longer afford to be passive. You need to observe, to understand who controls the flow of power, and to figure out how to stay in favor. You've heard stories of concubines who didn't make it, those who overstepped, those who misjudged the currents of power. Some of them were executed, their names lost to history. Others were quietly exiled, their fates sealed in silence. It's a harsh world, and your survival depends on how well you can play this game. Power isn't just about influence, though. It's about knowing when to be quiet, when to stay out of sight, and when to assert yourself. And you'll soon discover that even though You're a male concubine. Your body is just as much a tool as your mind. Your attractiveness, your ability to satisfy the king, is part of your value. But so is your ability to stay silent when needed, to navigate the complicated web of relationships that defines the court. It's a delicate balance, and you're learning that balance quickly. You begin to understand that the king's favor isn't something you can take for granted. Today you might be his prized possession, tomorrow you could be nothing. Your task now is to play the game. To win, you'll need more than just beauty and charm. You'll need wit, strategy, and above all, patience. As days turn into weeks, your understanding of the royal court deepens. At first, everything felt like a blur. Luxury, whispers, hidden dangers lurking around every corner. But now things are becoming clearer. You are not just a passive player in this world. You are a participant in an ever-shifting, high-stakes game. The intricacies of the palace's politics are starting to unfold in front of you, and you begin to understand that your role as a male concubine isn't just about serving the king's pleasures. It's a much more complex position, one fraught with both power and peril. Your role here, as you begin to realize, is far more multifaceted than you originally thought. You're not just the king's lover, nor merely a symbol of his wealth and virility. No, your purpose here is deeper. It is about representing the king's reach, his control over the court, and his ability to control those around him. You've seen how the royal concubines, both male and female, serve as pawns in the larger game of power and influence. The power they hold is subtle, indirect, yet deadly if wielded correctly. As a male concubine, you must master this balance if you want to survive. You've spent enough time in the harem now to see the dynamics at play. Some concubines have learned the game well. Their influence is palpable, their ability to keep the king's attention unmatched. Others, less fortunate, have faded into the background, forgotten by the king, their presence only an afterthought. But you've also observed a dangerous truth. Those who remain in the king's favor for too long are often the ones who are cast aside most brutally. The king's affection, while an undeniable source of power, is also fleeting. Today's favorite could be tomorrow's exile. You're learning this fast, and you begin to realize that the true skill in surviving this world isn't about winning the king's heart. It's about knowing when to step back, when to fade into the shadows, and when to reassert yourself. At first, you thought your survival depended on pleasing the king, on being the object of his desire, but now you see the bigger picture. You're not just here to satisfy the king's lust. You're here to navigate the complexities of court politics, to survive long enough to carve out a space for yourself in this world. It's about power, about understanding who holds the strings, who pulls the levers, and how you can position yourself within this ever-changing power structure. But the more you observe, the more you realize just how precarious your position is. You've seen concubines rise and fall, their lives shifting like sand. Some were adored by the king, their names whispered with reverence, only to be discarded when the king's attention wandered elsewhere. Others, who were once barely noticed, have quietly ascended, using subtle influence to secure a powerful position within the court. It's a strange, terrifying world, and you are learning that survival depends not just on loyalty, but on adaptability. Historians still argue whether the rise of concubines in royal courts ever had lasting influence, or if they were simply at the mercy of the king's whims. Some claim concubines never held any real power, while others argue that they could influence the king's decisions and shape the court's politics in ways that history has overlooked. You're starting to see the truth in both arguments. There's power in being the king's favorite, but there's also a danger that comes with it. Too much favor, too much attention, and you become a target. But with just the right amount of subtlety, just the right moves, you can navigate this complex game and come out on top. As you spend more time at court, you begin to understand the unspoken rules that govern this world. It's a delicate balance between submission and control, between power and vulnerability. You've learned that being too ambitious can be as dangerous as being too passive. You've heard whispers of concubines who overplayed their hand, pushing too far and losing everything. And then there are those who learned to hold power quietly, to influence from the shadows without drawing attention to themselves. These are the survivors, the ones who understand that real power is not about being in the spotlight. It's about knowing when to step into the light and when to remain hidden. The Queen, for all her jealousy and pride, is no different. She's a powerful figure in her own right, but even she is bound by the same rules. Her position is far from secure. The king's attentions may wander, but they also return. And in those moments, the Queen is reminded of her place in this hierarchy. She too must play the game, must manipulate her influence to ensure her survival. You've come to understand that nothing in the royal court is permanent. Today's favorite could be tomorrow's forgotten concubine, cast aside when the king's eye wanders to someone new. You've seen it happen to others, and you can't help but wonder, how long will your favor last? The king's attention is a fickle thing, and as you begin to understand the rules of the court, you realize that your survival depends not just on pleasing the king, but on outlasting the shifting tides of court politics. Power in the royal court isn't static. It's fluid, ever-changing, and often elusive. But you've learned that the key to survival is learning how to play the game, how to navigate the delicate web of alliances and rivalries that shape this world. You can't rely on the king's favor alone. You must find other ways to secure your place, to stay relevant, to remain powerful. You've heard the stories of concubines who learned this lesson the hard way. Those who became too comfortable, too complacent, and were eventually cast aside. But you're not like them. You are learning, adapting, and preparing for whatever comes next. The Queen's jealousy is no secret. She doesn't just dislike you, she fears you, and that fear is rooted in something deeper than simple rivalry. The king's affection for you isn't just a sign of his power, it's a direct challenge to her position. The Queen holds the highest rank in the harem, but even she is at the mercy of the king's whims. Her status, her influence, depends entirely on the king's favor, and anyone who threatens that balance becomes a potential danger. And now that danger is you. You feel it the moment the Queen's eyes meet yours across the royal hall. Her gaze is icy, calculating, but there's something else there, something you can't quite place. It's not just contempt, it's a warning. You are a pawn in a larger game, and while the king may smile upon you today, tomorrow could be a different story. The Queen's position is not one she takes lightly. She's lived in the shadows of the king's attention for years. and she knows how fleeting that attention can be. One moment she is the queen, beloved and untouchable, and the next she is just another woman, vying for the king's favor. Historians still debate whether the queen's jealousy in royal courts was a result of personal insecurity or a strategic move to maintain control over the harem. Some argue that the queen's jealousy was purely emotional, an innate reaction to competition for the king's favor. Others suggest it was part of the larger power struggle in the palace, a calculated response to the threat posed by the king's ever-changing desires. In your case, it's a combination of both. You, a male concubine, represent a real and immediate threat to the queen's position. And now she watches you closely, waiting for you to slip up, to give her a reason to strike. At first, you thought your biggest challenge would be surviving the whims of the king, but as you observe the queen, you begin to realize that her power is just as precarious as your own. She may be the queen, but she too is at the mercy of the king's favor, and as much as she might seem like the one in control, you see through the facade. Beneath her calm exterior, there's a woman who understands exactly how dangerous this court can be. The queen's jealousy isn't just limited to the way she treats you. It extends to the way she interacts with everyone in the palace. She knows who holds power, who can influence the king, and she keeps those people close, always in her orbit, always within arm's reach. Her mind works like a strategist's, calculating every move, every word spoken, every glance exchanged. You can see it in the way she interacts with other concubines, the way she holds court with the other women of the harem. There's an invisible line drawn in the sand, and anyone who crosses it will feel the queen's wrath. As you spend more time in the harem, you begin to understand the full scope of the queen's power. She isn't just a figurehead, she is the queen of the court, the woman who controls the lives of those around her. You begin to realize that your place here is not as secure as you once thought. The king's favor may have brought you here, but the queen's jealousy may be your undoing. You are learning that survival in this world is not just about gaining the king's favor. It's about navigating the complex and volatile relationships between everyone in the court. Your place in the harem depends on your ability to play the game, to remain neutral, to avoid making enemies. But neutrality is a luxury that's hard to maintain in such a cutthroat environment. The queen's power is undeniable, but so is yours. You may not yet know how to wield it, but the longer you stay in this court, the more you learn. You begin to see the subtle ways in which you can exert influence, the small but significant actions that can shift the tides in your favor. It's not about grand gestures or overt power. It's about understanding the dynamics of the court and positioning yourself in such a way that you can survive, thrive, and maybe, just maybe, rise above the other concubines. But your survival also depends on knowing when to step back, when to hide in the shadows, and when to make your move. The queen, for all her power, is not untouchable. She may hold sway over the harem, but even she must answer to the king. And while you are caught in the middle of this dangerous game, you are beginning to understand that nothing in this world is as permanent as it seems. You could fall from grace in an instant, but you could also rise higher than you ever imagined. As the days pass, the tension between you and the queen grows. She has made her position clear, and now it's up to you to decide how to respond. Do you bow to her power, playing the submissive role that's expected of you? Or do you use your newfound understanding of the court to manipulate the situation, to claim a space for yourself in the ever-changing dynamics of the royal palace? The stakes are high, and every decision you make will determine your future here in the royal court. The Queen's jealousy is a force to be reckoned with, but you are no longer the inexperienced newcomer you once were. You've learned the art of survival, and now it's time to put your lessons to the test. The lessons you've learned so far have been harsh but necessary. The royal court is not a place for the faint-hearted. It's a world where loyalty is fleeting, power is gained and lost in the blink of an eye, and where every smile hides a potential dagger. You've already begun to see the power struggles unfolding around you, and while the king's favor is important, you now understand that it's not the only factor in your survival. If you want to truly navigate this world, you must learn the politics of the court. The court's politics are a subtle, ever-shifting landscape, one where every action is scrutinized, every alliance tested. It's about understanding who holds the real power and who can be trusted. You begin to see that loyalty is not to be given freely, but earned. Those who offer their loyalty too easily are often the ones who are discarded the quickest. This isn't a place for blind trust. It's a place where power is negotiated daily, where every favor comes with a price. As you observe the dynamics of the court, you begin to understand the game being played. It's not about who is the king's favorite today. It's about knowing who holds sway over the king's decisions. The real players here are not the obvious ones, the courtiers and the concubines, but those who operate behind the scenes, pulling the strings in ways you can barely begin to comprehend. You've seen the influence of the king's advisors. They may not hold titles or claim the throne, but their words carry weight. They shape the king's decisions, guide his actions, and ultimately dictate the direction of the court. And while the king is the face of the kingdom, his advisors are the ones who steer the ship. You begin to understand that, in many ways, the king's favor is secondary to the influence of those who surround him. The queen, despite her jealousy, also plays a significant role in these political dynamics. She may hold power within the harem, but she too must answer to the king. Her influence, while considerable, is not absolute. She relies on her ability to sway the king's decisions, to keep his attention focused on her. But as you've seen, even the queen can be dethroned in a heartbeat. Her position is just as fragile as yours, and you realize that, in the royal court, no one is truly safe. Historians still argue whether the power of the queen in royal courts was a result of her bloodline, her beauty, or her ability to manipulate the king. Some argue that the queen's power was inherent, that her position was unassailable. Others claim that the queen's power was purely a matter of influence, a skill she cultivated through years of strategic manipulation. You're beginning to understand both sides of this argument. The queen's power, while significant, is not absolute, and you now know that her ability to manipulate the court is just as important as her position as the king's wife. You've started to realize that the court isn't just about surviving, it's about making your mark, finding a way to secure your position in the shifting sands of royal politics. The king may hold the throne, but the advisors, the courtiers, the concubines, they all play their part in shaping the course of the kingdom. And if you want to survive, you must understand the unspoken rules of this game, learn how to play the long game, and most importantly, keep your enemies close. The first few weeks in the court were about learning the basics, the customs, the expectations, the subtleties of court life. But now, you're learning the true intricacies of royal politics. You are starting to see who the real players are, who controls the flow of information, who has the king's ear, and who can influence the queen. The court is a complex network of alliances, rivalries, and shifting allegiances, and the only way to survive is to understand it. One thing is becoming clear: your survival depends not just on your ability to navigate the royal harem, but on your understanding of the court's politics. The king's favor will come and go, but those who control the levers of power are the ones who truly rule. It's time to start thinking beyond the bedroom. It's time to start thinking about how to position yourself in the larger game of survival. And as you continue to observe the subtle dynamics of the court, you begin to form alliances, learn who to trust, and understand how to use the information you've gathered to your advantage. The game has only just begun, and you are starting to realize that the stakes are much higher than you ever imagined. The true players in this world are not the ones with the most power. They are the ones who understand how to use power to their advantage. You're starting to understand this now. But as you begin to navigate the complex landscape of royal politics, you realize that nothing is guaranteed. Even the smallest misstep can lead to your downfall. The key to survival here is not just power. It's the subtle art of manipulation, the ability to read people, to understand what makes them tick, and to use that knowledge to your advantage. In this world, trust is a rare commodity, and the best way to survive is to play the game, not just with the king, but with everyone around you. As you lie awake that night, reflecting on everything you've learned, you realize that the court is not just a place of luxury and indulgence. It's a battlefield, one where only the most strategic players survive. The game is dangerous, the risks are high, but the rewards are even greater. And as you drift off to sleep, you can't help but feel a strange sense of excitement. This is your world now, and you intend to survive it. The royal court is a place of secrets, and you're quickly learning that the most dangerous power here isn't the ability to please the king or garner the queen's favor. No, the true power lies in the ability to understand the unspoken rivalries, to read between the lines, and to navigate the web of backdoor politics that permeates every corner of the palace. You start to realize that it's not just the king and queen who hold sway. It's everyone around them, those who pull the strings, behind closed doors. These are the people who control the real power, and they're not interested in your loyalty. They're interested in what you can give them. As you walk through the ornate halls of the palace, your eyes constantly flicker between the courtiers, the servants, and, most of all, the other concubines. Everyone is playing a game here, a game of influence, manipulation, and survival. At first, you thought the biggest challenge was to be seen as worthy in the king's eyes, but now you see that the real struggle is in staying relevant. There are those who are favored by the king one moment, only to find themselves discarded the next. There are those who maintain their positions by keeping their heads down, staying out of the limelight, and playing the long game. And then there are the others, the manipulators, the power players, who work behind the scenes to ensure their own rise. You realize that you've made a dangerous mistake, thinking the king's affection would be enough to secure your position. But it's not about love or lust, it's about power. And power in the royal court isn't held by the king alone. The advisors, the generals, the wealthy courtiers, they are the ones who shape the future, not the king. The king is just the figurehead, the puppet. And you're beginning to see that the strings are being pulled by those who understand the true nature of this court. The first time you notice the manipulation, it's almost imperceptible. A word here, a glance there, a quiet conversation in the corner of the hall. At first, you think it's just a passing moment, an insignificant exchange. But the more you watch, the more you begin to understand the subtlety of the court's political maneuvering. People aren't just here to be seen by the king. They are here to gain influence, to control the flow of information, to shape the course of events in ways that no one else can see. You are just one of many pawns in this game, and it's up to you to decide whether you will be a player or just another casualty. You begin to see the subtle games that are played in the court, and it's both exhilarating and terrifying. The courtiers and concubines may seem like friends, but in reality they are your competitors. And while some try to maintain a semblance of loyalty, you know better than to trust anyone. In this world, loyalty is just another commodity to be bought and sold, and the price of loyalty here is high. The game is ruthless, and you're starting to understand that your survival depends not just on your ability to please the king or avoid the queen's jealousy, but on your ability to manipulate the system to your advantage. You've seen it before, the way certain concubines have gained the king's trust. They are not necessarily the most beautiful or the most charming. They are the most calculating, the most strategic. They know how to use their position to extract favors, to gain power, to secure their place in the harem. You're beginning to realize that to survive here, you will need to play the game the same way. It's not enough to be the king's favorite. You must be able to control the other pieces on the board. You must understand who to trust, who to manipulate, and when to make your move. But this game isn't just about power. It's about trust too. The key to surviving in the royal court is not just about playing the game, it's about playing it with precision, knowing exactly when to show your hand and when to keep your cards close to your chest. In a place where betrayal is always lurking in the shadows, you must learn to stay one step ahead, to read people's motives, and to adjust your strategy accordingly. You observe the power dynamics. You begin to realize that the people who hold the most power in the court are those who can manipulate the situation without ever revealing their true intentions. They don't just play the game, they make the rules. You now understand that you will need to do the same. The king, for all his power, is not the only player in this game. And to survive, you must become a master of the game yourself. Historians still debate the extent of concubines' influence in royal courts. Some claim that concubines were merely pawns, trapped in the whims of the king and queen, while others argue that they could wield subtle but significant power, influencing court decisions in ways that were never fully acknowledged. You're beginning to see the truth in both perspectives. Concubines may not hold formal power, but they hold something far more valuable: access to the king, the queen, and the inner workings of the court. And with that access comes influence, if you know how to use it. You begin to recognize that your survival here doesn't depend on winning the king's affection. It depends on navigating the complex and ever-changing web of court politics. The courtiers, the generals, the other concubines, they all play a role in shaping the future of the kingdom. And if you want to be a player in this game, you'll need to learn how to manipulate the system, how to stay relevant, how to stay alive. The court is a battlefield, and you're starting to see the lay of the land. You've learned how to survive, how to play the game, and now it's time to make your move. But one thing is clear, you are no longer just a concubine. You are a player, and the game is far from over. The king's demands come fast, sometimes without warning, and you've learned that each request holds a deeper meaning than just simple pleasure. You were once naive enough to think you understood your role in the royal court, believing it was all about satisfying the king's desires. But now you've realized it's far more complex. Your body, your time, your very presence are tools in a far grander game, one that extends beyond the walls of the harem and into the heart of the kingdom itself. You're beginning to see that the king's whims are not just about lust, they are about control. Each command he gives, each request he makes, is a test. Not just a test of your loyalty, but of your ability to navigate the court's delicate balance. He wants to know how you will react, how you will adapt. You're a reflection of his power, and how you respond to his desires determines where you stand in this dangerous world. At first you thought your role was to simply be pleasing to the king, to fill the role of a lover or companion. But now you understand that the king's true test lies in how you handle the pressure, how you maintain your composure under scrutiny. You are here to entertain, yes, but you are also here to provide him with something more valuable. Your ability to navigate the royal court. Your value is determined by how well you can balance your position within the harem and the delicate political landscape of the kingdom. You've witnessed the king's unpredictable nature firsthand. One day he may shower you with affection, offering you lavish gifts and his undivided attention, but the next he may forget your name, dismissing you as though you're nothing more than a fleeting moment in his life. The king is a capricious ruler, and his favor is something that can be gained and lost in the blink of an eye. The court is built around this volatility, and you've come to realize that survival depends not just on gaining the king's favor, but on understanding when to step back, when to disappear into the background, and when to assert your place. It's a constant balancing act, a delicate dance that requires more than just beauty or charm. It requires a keen understanding of the game. You've watched the other concubines, the seasoned players, and you've learned that survival is not about submission, but about adaptability. Some of them have learned to use the king's unpredictability to their advantage, leveraging his moments of attention to secure their own place within the court. Others have learned to fade into the background, always there when needed, but never making a move until the time is right. But the king's demands go beyond what you've expected. He requests things that make you uneasy, things that push the boundaries of your own morality. You're asked to perform tasks, deliver messages, and play roles that you never anticipated. You're no longer just a lover, you're a tool, a weapon in the king's hands. Your ability to please him is no longer enough. You must now prove your worth by navigating the dark waters of royal intrigue. At first, you didn't understand the significance of the small tasks he gave you. Fetch this, deliver that, stand here, stand there. But now, you begin to see the larger picture. These small requests are his way of testing you. He wants to see how you respond to his will, how well you can execute his commands, and you realize that your very survival in the court depends on your ability to meet his demands, to fulfill his requests without question, and to do so in a way that makes you indispensable. But as you fulfill his whims, you begin to question what this life has become. You were once an individual with your own desires, your own aspirations. Now you're caught in a world where your every move is dictated by the king's needs. You've become a tool, a piece on a chessboard, moving at the whim of a ruler who sees you as little more than a possession. The king's demands have stripped away your autonomy, replacing it with a need to please, a need to perform, a need to survive. Yet there is something intoxicating about it all. The power, the prestige, the luxury. It's a heady mixture, and you can't deny the pull it has on you. The king may see you as a mere object, but in some ways you have become a part of the kingdom's machinery. Your role in the court is no longer just about satisfying the king. It's about securing your place within the delicate web of politics and power that defines this world. Historians still debate whether the male concubines in royal courts were simply pawns, or if they held a subtle form of power. Some argue that concubines were entirely at the mercy of the king's will, while others claim they wielded significant influence, shaping the kingdom's future through their relationships with the king. You're beginning to see the truth in both perspectives. On the surface, you may seem like a mere servant, a plaything of the king, but beneath that, you are learning to navigate the court's complex power dynamics. You may not hold formal power, but you are starting to understand how to use your position to influence the court, to secure your survival, and perhaps even your rise. The king's demands are constant, and each one is a reminder of just how precarious your position is. You must learn to please him, to adapt to his changing moods, and to anticipate his every need. But you must also understand that the king's favor is fleeting. It can be lost as quickly as it is gained. And when that moment comes, when the king turns his attention elsewhere, you must be ready. You must be ready to adapt, to shift with the tides, and to survive the inevitable shifts of power. As the days turn into weeks, you begin to realize that survival in the royal court is not about who is favored by the king. It's about who can adapt, who can survive the changing tides, and who can hold on to their place in the court's delicate power structure. The king's demands are just the beginning of a much larger game, and you are beginning to learn that the true game isn't played with affection, it's played with power. Indulgence and decay are the true constants in the royal court. The walls of the palace gleam with gold and marble, yet beneath the surface the kingdom is slowly rotting. The riches and luxuries offered to you seem endless at first. Fine foods, rich fabrics, exquisite perfumes, but soon you come to realize that these are mere distractions. The court's obsession with excess is not just about indulgence. It's a symptom of a deeper, more insidious disease. The king and his courtiers, the very people who seem to have everything, are in fact rotting from within. At first, it's easy to be swept up in the opulence, the grand feasts, the endless supply of wines and delicacies, the extravagant dresses and jewels. Everything seems perfect. The wealth and power of the court shine like a beacon, and for a moment you can almost forget the tension and the danger that lurk beneath it all. But as the days pass, you begin to see through the facade. The kingdom is built on excess, yes, but that very excess is what is slowly destroying it. You notice it in the way the courtiers speak, in the way they carry themselves. There's a certain hollowness to their smiles, a weariness in their eyes that betrays their gilded exterior. The palace, with all its wealth and beauty, is a prison, and the people here are its captives. The king himself, once so full of energy and passion, seems drained, consumed by his own desires. He's a shadow of the man he once was, and you can see it in the way he treats you and everyone else. He uses people, discards them, and moves on to the next. But the real tragedy is that, in his search for pleasure and power, he has lost everything that made him truly alive. Historians have long debated whether the excesses of royal courts were a sign of decadence or a necessary part of maintaining power. Some argue that the lavishness was essential for displaying the ruler's wealth and superiority, while others claim that it was a sign of moral decay, a kingdom slowly crumbling under the weight of its own indulgence. You're starting to see both sides of the argument, but one thing is certain: this excess is not sustainable. The court's indulgence in luxury leads to its own downfall. It's not just the kingdom that is decaying, it's the people too. The concubines are no exception to this. You've noticed how some of them, once vibrant and full of life, have begun to change. They eat too much, sleep too much, and spend their days lounging in the harem, waiting for the king's next whim. They have become nothing more than shadows of their former selves, caught in the endless cycle of luxury and emptiness. There's no real joy in this life, no purpose beyond serving the king's desires. The court is full of people who are just going through the motions, trapped in a world that promises everything but gives nothing in return. You can feel it in your own bones, the weight of the luxury, the pressure to maintain your place, the constant need to please. It's all starting to take its toll. You used to have dreams, aspirations, things that mattered to you beyond the royal court, but now, as you drift through the days, you begin to wonder if those things will ever matter again. In this world, it's easy to forget who you are, to lose sight of your own desires and goals. The court has a way of swallowing you whole, of making you forget who you once were. But despite the decay, there are still those who thrive in this world. They are the ones who have learned to live within the system, to use the court's indulgences to their advantage. They are the ones who understand that survival here is not just about avoiding decay, it's about mastering it, learning how to use the excess to secure your place in the court. You've seen them at work, the courtiers who never seem to age, who maintain their beauty and grace despite the years of excess. They know how to play the game, how to use the king's desires to get what they want. They are the true players in this world, and if you want to survive, you must learn from them. But even they are not immune to the court's decay. You've watched as some of the most powerful figures in the palace slowly lose their power, their influence slipping away as they indulge in one luxury after another. You begin to see that it's not just the king who is at risk of decay, it's the entire system. The court is built on excess, but that very excess is what will bring it crashing down. You can already feel the cracks forming, the slow erosion of everything that once seemed solid. The indulgence in the court is more than just material. It is a mental and emotional decay. The courtiers, the concubines, they are all losing themselves in this world. They no longer see beyond the walls of the palace, no longer care about anything beyond their own desires. They are prisoners of their own luxury, and that luxury is slowly destroying them. You can see it in the way they act, in the way they treat each other, in the way they treat you. The court has become a place where everything is expendable, where people are just pawns in a game of power and pleasure. You are starting to feel the weight of this decay. You've learned to survive, to adapt to the ever-changing tides of the court, but you can't help but wonder, at what cost? What have you sacrificed to stay in this world? What have you lost? You begin to realize that the true price of survival in this world is more than just your freedom. It's your very soul. The court may offer you wealth, luxury and power, but it also takes away everything that makes you truly human. The palace is a place of indulgence and decay, a world that promises everything but gives nothing in return. And as you look around, you begin to see that the people here, for all their wealth and status, are just as lost as you are. They are trapped in a cycle of excess, unable to break free from the very system they have built. And in that moment you realize that you may be more like them than you care to admit. The question now is whether you will allow this decay to consume you, or whether you will find a way to break free before it's too late. Every court has its secrets, and the royal court you find yourself in is no exception. At first you're drawn into the pageantry, the lavish feasts, the glittering jewels, and the intoxicating power that fills every corner of the palace. But as the days pass, you start to realize that there is much more going on here than meets the eye. The kingdom runs on secrets, on whispered conversations, on hidden alliances, and on the quiet manipulation of those who pull the strings behind closed doors. You begin to understand that, in this world, nothing is ever truly as it seems. The king, for all his power, is not the one making all the decisions. There are others, advisors, generals, courtiers, who quietly shape the course of events, steering the kingdom in ways that no one else sees. They are the ones who hold the real power, the ones who understand the intricacies of the court and know how to navigate its complex web of alliances and rivalry. You've seen glimpses of these hidden figures, the ones who work behind the scenes, pulling the strings. They are the true players in the game, and they are the ones who can make or break you. You begin to learn that survival here isn't just about pleasing the king or avoiding the queen's jealousy. It's about understanding who controls the flow of information, who can influence the decisions that shape the kingdom, and how to position yourself in such a way that you remain relevant. It's not just the courtiers and concubines who are part of this world of secrets. It's everyone, the servants, the guards, the military leaders, and even the foreign diplomats. They all have their own agendas, their own motives, and their own ways of manipulating the system. You start to see the quiet battles being fought between those who want power and those who seek to maintain the status quo. Everyone is vying for control, and you, as a male concubine, are no exception. Your position, however small it may seem, is a part of this larger struggle for influence and control. Historians still debate the true role of concubines in royal courts. Some argue that they were mere tools, used to satisfy the king's desires and nothing more. Others claim that concubines held more power than is often acknowledged, subtly influencing the decisions of the king and shaping the political landscape of the court. You're starting to see the truth in both arguments. The concubines may not hold formal power, but they are undeniably a part of the court's intricate web. You have access to the king, to the heart of the court, and that access is power. The question is, how will you use it? You begin to see how the king's decisions are influenced not just by his desires, but by the people around him. The advisers whisper in his ear, the generals sway his opinions, and the courtiers jostle for his favor. The king may hold the throne, but the real decisions are made by those who know how to manipulate the flow of information. You begin to understand that your survival in the court doesn't depend on winning the king's favor. It depends on your ability to navigate the currents of power that flow beneath the surface. As you delve deeper into the world of secrets and manipulation, you realize that no one is truly safe in this court. The most powerful figures can fall as quickly as they rise. The king himself is not immune to the shifting tides of power. You've seen it before, the way his advisers and generals jockey for position, the way the courtiers whisper behind his back, the way the queen plays her own game, trying to secure her place in the royal hierarchy. Everyone is out for themselves, and even the king is not above being manipulated. The deeper you go, the more you understand that the court is a house of cards, delicate, fragile, and ready to collapse at the slightest provocation. The secrets that are kept hidden in the shadows are the very foundation of the palace's power, but they also make it vulnerable. A single piece of information, a single betrayal, could bring everything crashing down. You are starting to feel the weight of these secrets, the burden of the knowledge you've gained. You know that you cannot survive in this world without playing the game. You must navigate the labyrinth of secrets and lies, carefully positioning yourself in such a way that you remain safe. But you also know that the deeper you go, the harder it will be to escape unscathed. Every decision you make, every move you make, will shape your future in this core. The game is not just about survival, it's about control, influence, and power. And now you've realized that you are a part of it. You are no longer just a pawn in the game, you are a player. You've learned how to manipulate the system, how to read the people around you, how to influence the flow of information. But you also know that the stakes are higher than ever. The secrets you've uncovered have placed you at the center of the court's delicate balance of power. You must tread carefully, knowing that any wrong move could be your last. As you lie awake that night, you can't help but wonder what the future holds. Will you continue to rise in this world, using the secrets you've learned to your advantage? Or will you fall, crushed by the weight of the court's intrigues and betrayals? The answer, as always, lies in your ability to navigate the game. And the game is far from over. The unspoken rules of the royal court are as crucial to your survival as the king's affection. The more you observe, the more you understand that every action, every glance, every whisper can have far-reaching consequences. The palace is not just a place of luxury and indulgence. It is a chessboard, and the pieces are constantly shifting. Your survival depends not just on the relationships you maintain with the king and queen, but on your ability to understand and navigate the silent codes that govern the court. You begin to realize that loyalty here is a currency, traded for power, influence, and sometimes survival. You've watched the seasoned players in the court, the courtiers and concubines, who have learned to read the room, to understand the subtle nuances of royal life. They don't just exist within the court's walls, they manipulate the system, using their knowledge of the unspoken rules to ensure they remain in the king's favor. You realize that, in order to survive, you need to learn these rules too. You can no longer afford to be passive, to simply follow the king's commands without thought. You must anticipate, plan, and act with precision if you want to rise in this cutthroat world. One of the first things you learn is the importance of timing. In the royal court, there is a right moment for everything. A wrong move, a misplaced word, and you risk losing everything. You've seen it happen to others, concubines who were once favorites, only to fall out of the king's favor at the slightest misstep. The key to survival here is knowing when to speak, when to stay silent, when to act, and when to wait. The courtiers around you are masters of this timing. They know when to present themselves to the king, when to step back, and when to make their move. You begin to understand that survival isn't about being the loudest or the most attention-grabbing. It's about being the most strategic. Historians still debate whether the royal courts were truly governed by merit, or if survival simply depended on who knew how to play the game. Some claim that the court's politics were driven by ability, while others argue that it was all about appearance and timing. You're starting to see that both sides have their truths. It's not enough to simply be skilled or beautiful. You must also know when to showcase those qualities and when to hide them. You must master the art of subtlety, of playing your part without drawing too much attention. The next lesson comes in the form of alliances, both personal and political. You quickly realize that no one survives in the royal court alone. Even the most powerful courtiers need allies to maintain their position. The game isn't just about individual survival. It's about aligning yourself with those who can help you rise. But even alliances are fraught with danger. The people you trust today may turn on you tomorrow, and you must always be prepared for betrayal. You begin to make small connections with the other concubines, carefully observing their behavior, listening to their stories. You start to see the patterns. Who is truly in the king's favor, who is just biding their time, and who is struggling to hold on to their position. You learn that, in this world, no one can afford to be weak. Every concubine here is playing their own game, and they will use you just as quickly as you would use them. Trust, you realize, is a luxury you cannot afford. But even as you build these alliances, you understand the danger they bring. The court is a place of constant betrayal. Those who trust too easily are often the first to fall. You've seen concubines who were once close to the king, only to be cast aside when the king's attention shifted elsewhere. You've heard whispers of those who thought they were safe, only to find themselves exiled or even executed when the power balance shifted. The court is a place where survival isn't guaranteed. It's a game where everyone plays for keeps, and the only way to stay ahead is to remain constantly vigilant. You begin to understand that the true power in the royal court lies in your ability to remain flexible, to adapt to changing circumstances. You can't rely on one favor, one relationship, one alliance. You must be prepared for the unexpected, for the sudden shifts in power that occur with little warning. Your survival depends on your ability to read the room, to stay one step ahead of your rivals, and to always be prepared to shift your strategy when necessary. As the days pass, you begin to master the subtle art of court politics. You learn how to maintain your alliances, how to manipulate those around you, and how to position yourself in such a way that you remain a valuable asset to the king. But you also begin to feel the weight of the game, the constant need to strategize, to calculate every move. It's exhausting. mentally and emotionally. You start to wonder whether it's all worth it. The luxury, the power, the status, none of it feels real. You are surrounded by wealth, but you realize that what you really want is freedom. But that freedom seems distant, almost impossible. The longer you remain in the royal court, the more you understand that it's not just the king's desires that control you, it's the court itself. It has become a part of you, shaping your every action, every thought, every decision. The more you try to free yourself, the more entangled you become in its web. You begin to feel the weight of your situation, the realization that the longer you stay here, the harder it will be to leave. The court, with all its beauty and luxury, is a prison. You have learned how to survive, how to play the game, but you wonder at what cost. How much of yourself have you lost in the process? And is it too late to ever escape? The unspoken rules that govern the royal court have now become second nature to you. You know when to hold your tongue, when to stand still, when to strike. But as you climb higher in the ranks of the harem, something begins to shift inside you. The game, which once seemed like a means of survival, now feels like a relentless cycle, one that is slowly draining the life out of you. The power, the influence, the luxury, they come with a price, and you're starting to feel that price more acutely with each passing day. You've learned that nothing here is guaranteed. The king's affection is fleeting, the queen's jealousy is ever present, and the alliances you've carefully built can crumble in an instant. In this world, loyalty is fluid, and survival depends on your ability to adapt, to shift alliances and allegiances with the changing tides of power. And yet, despite all your strategy, all your carefully calculated moves, you begin to question whether it's all worth it. At what point does the game stop being about survival and start being about sacrifice? As you settle deeper into the court, you begin to understand the true cost of the king's favor. It isn't just about your body, your time, or your loyalty. It's about your soul. You've seen it happen to others, those who were once bright, hopeful, eager to prove themselves, but who faded into shadows over time. The court has a way of eating people alive, of stripping them of everything that makes them human, until they become nothing more than hollow shells, repeating the same roles over and over, caught in the same vicious cycle. And now, as you look around, you realize that the price you've paid for your survival is beginning to feel too high. You're losing pieces of yourself, and you're not sure how much longer you can hold on. The queen's jealousy, once a shadow in the background, is now a constant presence in your life. It's subtle, creeping into your every interaction with her. You can feel her eyes on you, her scrutiny heavy as she watches you carefully. She knows that your position is precarious, and she waits for the right moment to strike. You've seen it happen to others, concubines who once enjoyed the king's favor but were discarded when the queen turned her wrath upon them. But there's something more insidious about the queen's power. She isn't just motivated by jealousy. She's motivated by a desire to control the king's affections, to remind him and everyone else in the court that she is the true queen, the one who holds the real power, and you are just another threat to her throne. You've learnt to play the queen's game, to navigate her jealousy with careful steps, but every interaction leaves you feeling more drained. The court has a way of making you feel small, insignificant, as though you are just a pawn in a game that you'll never fully understand. The king, the queen, the courtiers, all of them are playing for their own reasons, and you are caught in the middle, trying to survive without getting caught in their crossfire. And then there's the king himself. Once you thought his affection was everything, that being in his favor would secure your place in the court. But now you see the truth. The king is a figurehead, a symbol of power, but the real power lies with the ones who control him. The advisors, the generals, the courtiers. They are the ones who shape his decisions, who control the flow of power. The king may sit on the throne, but it's the people behind him who truly rule. Historians have long debated whether the male concubines in royal courts held real power or were simply pawns in the larger game. Some claim they were mere playthings used to satisfy the king's desires, while others argue that they held subtle but significant influence, shaping decisions and playing a crucial role in the court's politics. He is starting to see the truth in both arguments. The concubines are not as powerless as they seem, but they are also not as powerful as they believe. They are caught in a delicate dance, trying to maintain favor without losing themselves in the process. You've begun to question your own role in all of this. You've learnt how to survive, how to play the game, but you can't shake the feeling that you've become just another piece on the board. The longer you stay in this world, the more you realize that you are losing parts of yourself, your dreams, your identity, your sense of purpose. The court has a way of consuming everything in its path, and you are no exception. The longer you remain in the harem, the more you begin to wonder, what will happen to you when the game ends, when the king's favor shifts elsewhere, when the queen turns her attention to someone new, when the alliances you've worked so hard to build crumble to dust? What then? Will you be able to leave this world behind, or will you be trapped forever, unable to escape the game you've been forced to play? You begin to see that survival in the royal court is not just about playing the game, it's about knowing when to stop, when to step back, when to let go, when to choose freedom over power. You've survived longer than most, but at what cost? The court is a place where you can gain everything but lose yourself in the process. You've learned the unspoken rules, you've played the game, and now you must decide, is this life worth the price? The world of the royal court is one of luxury, power, and danger. It promises everything, but gives nothing in return. As you lie awake, reflecting on everything you've learned, you realize that survival here comes with a heavy price. A price that may one day be too high to pay. Betrayal is a constant companion in the royal court, lurking just beyond every corner, waiting for the moment when you least expect it. You've learned that the very foundations of this world are built on deception and double-crossing. Every ally you make is a potential traitor. Every favor granted comes with a hidden price, and trust is the rarest commodity of all. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but one you've learned to accept. The court is a dangerous place, and everyone, from the lowliest servant to the highest-ranking official, is playing a game of their own. The key to survival is not just playing the game, but knowing how to avoid being played. You start to understand the deeper currents of manipulation in the palace. You've seen concubines come and go, favorites of the king one day, forgotten the next. Some rise quickly, winning the king's favor, only to fall just as fast. You've watched as they were cast aside, discarded as if they were nothing more than broken toys, their names erased from history. You've heard the stories, of course. Whispers of betrayal, of deceit, of secret alliances that no one saw coming. The court is a place where everyone wears a mask, hiding their true intentions behind a veil of politeness and courtesy. But beneath the surface, the true game is far more ruthless. And you've learned that to survive here, you must play it better than anyone else. You've also realized that no one can be trusted, not even those closest to you. The Queen, with all her jealousy and power, is a player in this game too. She has her own alliances, her own network of spies, and her own ambitions. You've seen how she manipulates the king, how she keeps him in her grasp with subtlety and cunning. She may appear calm and composed on the surface, but underneath she is just as ruthless as anyone else in the court, and you know that as long as you remain in her sights, you're a target. You're not just a concubine anymore. You're a threat to her position, and she will do whatever it takes to neutralize you. You start to notice the subtle signs of betrayal, the quiet whispers in the corners of the court. You overhear conversations, catch glimpses of secret meetings, and begin to piece together the hidden plots that are constantly unfolding around you. The game is no longer just about winning the king's favor. It's about navigating the complex web of alliances and rivalries that define the palace. You learn quickly that those who are too obvious in their loyalty are the ones who will be the first to fall. You must stay under the radar, keep your actions subtle, and never reveal too much. You can't afford to make enemies, at least not until the time is right. But the truth is, you've already made enemies. The Queen is just one of them. You've seen her eyes turn cold when she looks at you, the subtle contempt she hides behind her polite demeanor, and you've heard the rumors of how she has played this game before, how she has manipulated and discarded concubines who were once in favor. She has the king's ear, but she also has the court's fear, and that makes her one of the most dangerous players in this game. As you begin to understand the full extent of the betrayal that exists in this world, you start to wonder whether anyone in the court is truly loyal to anyone but themselves. The courtiers, the generals, the concubines, they are all playing their own game, each one vying for power, influence, and control. They may smile at you, offer you gifts, speak kindly to your face, but you know now that they are only biding their time, waiting for the right moment to strike. You have to stay alert, always watching, always listening, ready to act when the time comes. The court is a place where loyalty is a rare commodity, and survival depends on your ability to read the room, to understand who is truly on your side and who is just waiting for an opportunity to use you. Historians still argue whether royal courts were truly places of loyalty and honor, or whether they were simply breeding grounds for treachery and betrayal. Some claim that loyalty was the foundation of the king's court, while others believe that it was always a matter of power and manipulation. The truth, you're beginning to understand, is somewhere in between. Loyalty exists in the court, but it is conditional. It is based on what you can offer, how much power you hold, and how well you can manipulate the system. The true key to survival here isn't loyalty, it's adaptability. You must learn to read people, to understand their motivations, and to know when to align yourself with them and when to pull away. You've learned that betrayal is not always overt. It's not always a dramatic knife-in-the-back moment. Sometimes it's subtle, a whisper behind closed doors, a small gesture that means everything. The most dangerous betrayal in the court isn't the one you see coming. It's the one that's hidden in plain sight, the one that's disguised as a simple act of kindness or loyalty. The people you trust the most are often the ones who will betray you when the time is right. And you've learned that the best way to survive is not to trust anyone completely, but to always keep your guard up, to always be ready for the moment when the mask slips and the true face is revealed. You've spent so long playing the game, so long learning the rules, that you begin to wonder if you've forgotten who you really are. The court has consumed you, shaping you into someone you barely recognize. You've learned to manipulate, to deceive, to outlast your rivals, but in the process, you've lost sight of the person you once were. The question now is, how much longer can you keep playing the game before it consumes you entirely? As the days pass, you realize that the court has a way of stripping you of everything: your identity, your sense of self, your values. The longer you stay, the harder it becomes to leave, to escape the web of lies and betrayal that has become your life. But even as you wonder whether you can survive much longer in this world, you know that you've already crossed a line. There's no turning back now. The game has become your life. And, whether you like it or not, you are now a player in the royal court's most dangerous game. The price of power becomes clear in the royal court. It is not just about the gold, the jewels, or the grand feasts. It's about everything else: the isolation, the constant vigilance, and the haunting knowledge that, at any moment, everything could be taken from you. You're no longer just a concubine. You've become a product of this world, an entity whose worth is determined not by your value as a person, but by your ability to survive within its labyrinthine system of politics and intrigue. The longer you stay, the more you see how the court is a breeding ground for corruption, not just of morals but of the soul. There are whispers of rebellion, of conspiracies, but they are nothing more than distractions, shadows in the grand scheme of things. The truth is, the greatest rebellion in this world is not about overthrowing the king or the queen. It's about freeing yourself from the grip of the court, from the constant manipulation and control that strips you of your humanity. You've learnt to navigate the court, to play its game, but as you've risen in status, you've begun to understand that every victory you win comes at a cost. The more power you gain, the more isolated you become. You see it in the eyes of the other concubines, in the way they look at you with a mix of envy and fear. Power in the royal court is a double-edged sword. It gives you influence, but it also makes you a target. The more you are favored by the king, the more dangerous your position becomes. The more the queen grows jealous, the more she will seek to destroy you. You are a piece on a chessboard, but you're starting to realize that there's no way to win this game without losing yourself in the process. You begin to feel the weight of the game on your shoulders, the constant pressure to please, to entertain, to maintain favor. It's exhausting. You've become adept at reading people, at understanding what they want, at playing the role that will keep you in the king's good graces. But in the process, you've lost sight of who you really are. The king wants you to be a symbol, a reflection of his power, but in doing so, he's taken away your sense of identity. The court wants you to be nothing more than an object, a pawn in their game, and you've allowed yourself to be shaped by their expectations. But at what cost? You look around at the other concubines, each one playing their own game, each one trying to outlast the others. Some are more subtle than others, using their charm and wit to win the king's affection. Others are more brazen, using their beauty and seduction to claim the king's favor. But none of them are free. They are all trapped in the same web, bound by the same rules, the same expectations. You begin to wonder if there is any way out, any way to escape this world of indulgence and decay. But the longer you stay, the more you realize that there is no escape. The court is your prison, and you've already sold your soul to survive in it. But as you continue to play the game, you start to feel a strange sense of clarity. You've learned the rules, you've adapted to the shifting tides of power, and you've survived longer than most. But now you wonder if survival is enough. The game is not just about surviving, it's about living. And as you stare out over the palace grounds, you realize that you don't want to just survive anymore. You want to find a way out, a way to reclaim your humanity, your identity. But the more you think about it, the more you realize that this world, this court, has taken everything from you. It has shaped you into something you no longer recognize. You've played the game, but now you find yourself questioning whether it was worth it. The power, the luxury, the influence, they all seem so empty now. You've seen the courtiers and concubines who have lived in this world for years, and you can see the toll it has taken on them. They are shadows of their former selves, worn down by the constant manipulation, the endless game of survival. You don't want to end up like them, lost in the game, consumed by the power you once craved. But you also know that escaping this world is not as simple as walking out the door. The truth is, the court has already consumed you. You are a part of it now, just as much as it is a part of you. The question is, can you find a way to break free, to reclaim your own life, or will you forever be trapped in this world of indulgence, decay, and power games? You've played the game, but you begin to see that survival alone is no longer enough. The cost of power is too high, and you wonder whether it's worth paying. The court may have given you everything you thought you wanted: luxury, influence, even the king's favor. But it has taken something far more valuable: your soul. And now, as you look at the life you've built within these walls, you realize that it's not enough. You want more. You want freedom. And the only way to get it is to break away from the court's suffocating grip. But as the days pass, you realize that leaving the court is not just a physical escape. It's a mental and emotional one too. The court has shaped you, changed you, and now you must decide whether you want to remain in its thrall or find a way to escape the trap you've built for yourself. The game has been played, the power has shifted, and now you must make the hardest decision of all: stay or leave. Freedom. It's the one thing that seems so distant, so unattainable in this world you've been trapped in. You've learnt all the rules, mastered every maneuver, and navigated the treacherous waters of the royal court. You've survived longer than most, and yet, as you reflect on your journey, you realize that survival alone isn't enough. You are no longer just a concubine. You are a product of this world, shaped by its rules, its demands, and its manipulations. You are very old and frail, shaped by its rules, its demands, and its manipulation. But as you stand in the quiet of the royal palace, looking out over the grand, opulent grounds, you realize that no matter how powerful you become, no matter how much influence you gain, you will always be a prisoner in this gilded cage. The game is over. You've reached the end of your journey, but it's not the end you imagined. The king, once your reason for living, is now a distant figure, his affection a fleeting memory. The queen's jealousy, which once felt like a threat, is now just another distraction. The court, with all its luxuries, its grandeur and its intrigue, is a hollow place. You've given so much to survive here, but now you wonder what you've really gained. What have you sacrificed to be a part of this world? Historians still debate whether concubines in royal courts ever truly experienced freedom, or whether their entire lives were dictated by the whims of the king and the power dynamics of the palace. Some argue that concubines were victims of the court's oppressive system, while others claim they wielded hidden influence and power. But as you stand on the precipice, staring into the void, you begin to realize that the real power in the court was never in the hands of the king or queen, and it was always in your hands. The ability to play the game, to survive, to manipulate. This was your true power. But now that power feels empty, meaningless. You've learned that the most important lesson of all is one that the royal court can never teach you. How to reclaim your own life, your own identity. The truth is, you've become something you never intended. You've become a part of the court's machine, a cog in the system that keeps this world running. And now, as you look at yourself in the mirror, you don't recognize the person staring back. You're no longer the hopeful individual who entered the palace all those months ago. You are a survivor, yes, but at what cost? The person you once were has been buried beneath the weight of manipulation, deceit, and survival. And now you must decide if you want to continue down this path, or if you will find a way to break free. The choice is yours. You can stay, continuing to play the game, surviving and adapting, but at the cost of your soul. You've seen the concubines who have been here for years, their eyes empty, their spirits broken. They are mere shadows of who they once were, unable to leave because they've lost all sense of who they are. The court has consumed them as it has consumed you. Or you can leave. But leaving the court isn't as simple as walking out the door. It means leaving behind the power, the luxury, and the safety you've fought so hard to achieve. It means breaking away from everything you've ever known, everything that's defined your existence here. You begin to understand that true freedom isn't found in power or luxury. It's found in the ability to walk away, to reclaim your own life, and to live by your own rules. The court has taught you many lessons, but it has also taken so much from you. And now the question remains, can you leave it all behind and find a life of your own? Can you break free from the chains that have bound you to this world? You've learned to survive, to play the game, but now you must learn how to live. The court, for all its grandeur and power, is a prison, and you've spent too long locked inside. But the door is open, and the world beyond the palace is waiting. You may not know what lies ahead, but you know that you can no longer remain in this place. The power, the luxury, the intrigue, they no longer hold any meaning. The only thing that matters now is your freedom, your chance to reclaim the life you've lost. As you step away from the life you've known, you realize that the hardest part isn't leaving the court. It's leaving the version of yourself that the court has created, the person who survived, who played the game, who adapted to every change, the person who lived only to please, only to survive. That version of you must die, and in its place you must be reborn. The game is over. You are free, And now it's time to find out who you really are, beyond the walls of the royal court. So, you take one last look at the palace, at the life you've known, and you walk away. The court may have taken everything from you, but it cannot take your soul. You are free now, and that is all that matters.